All right, welcome back. My name is Chris Ashnelli, and I get to build, buy, and sell simple profit businesses every single day. And today we are continuing our journey on the buy, sell bootcamp, offered for free inside of Bootstrapper Capital community. And we are at the very, very, very end of it. So just as a quick recap, we found a deal. We got into preliminary due diligence. We got into an LOI that pushed us into a formal due diligence. We built and designed our 100-day plan. We negotiated our purchase agreement. We then went through our financing and our deal structures. And now we are at the point where we are like ready to close this thing, right? The agreements are there. The money's there. Everybody's ready to go at the table. Like, what does that look like, right? What to expect? Now, again, just a quick recap. This information is outlined inside of the purchase agreement. So this isn't like something that is an after the fact type of thought process. You kind of already know what to expect. But I just wanted to do this video just so that you can have a sense of what it looks like to actually close into a deal. Before we get into that, I just want to quickly remind you that this information provided in this video, 100% for educational purposes. It's just me sharing my experiences going through this process. And if you yourself, it should not constitute as legal, financial, or professional advice. And if you yourself are going through this process, please do consult with a licensed professional for making any decisions. Don't make your decisions based on this content, this video. Go get the help that you deserve, right? Now, in a closing, you got different stages of a closing, right? So many people think like, oh man, like this has been such a process. Oh, I've spent, who knows how long, maybe it's a few weeks, maybe it's a few months, maybe it's a few years, who knows, right? But it's definitely been a process. It's been a journey. It's coming to an end. And you're like, oh man, I want this thing to be done. Like, I'm ready to go. Most folks think like you get to the close, it's just like one thing, one and done, sign a couple of papers and you're done. Not the case. And that's why I am recording this video to emphasize it's a process unto itself. It's not that simple, right? You want to keep it simple, but simple does not necessarily mean easy, right? Simple just means organized in this situation. So we're going to break the closing into a couple of different stages, right? The pre-closing stage, you want to confirm that everything has been met inside of the purchase agreement. So you're going back to that agreement. You spent so much time, you invested so much intentional time to make sure that it was a really well negotiated, itemized, articulate, designed, intentional agreement. You want to just go back and make sure that everything was done. All the contingencies are met, right? All the due diligence has been completed the way in which it needs to be. You're going to then prepare a closing checklist to make sure that all the itemized tasks that you completed and started to outline while you've been working through this process are there so that you know what needs to be done, right? At that point, you're just going to schedule your closing date. That's a big date. Right? That's like the date on your calendar you draw red circles around and you tell everybody about and you're excited about because that's a big day. That's kind of like D-Day, right? You're going to schedule your closing date and time, right? That way everybody's going to know, all the folks that are involved, buy side, sell side, team and advisors, legal, etc. Everybody's going to be there. And more importantly, or equally importantly, all of the stuff is going to be there that's necessary. So the closing documents are all going to be prepared, right? The bill of sale, if there is a stock transfer agreement, like whatever is going to be executed, right, going into this, you'll have prepared and ready so that when that day comes, everything's ready to go, including the finances, right? So then you're going to, ultimately be in a situation where post come together, you'll sign and then hopefully transfer capital and hopefully transfer ownership. And then you'll be in a situation where you could get into the post-closing. So the day has come. We've been watching our calendar. We're now here. We're going to all go to this place. We could do it virtually. I mean, most deals get done virtually, but maybe it's a physical deal. You're all meeting up in a central location, whatever the case is. But you want to review and then execute, meaning sign the documents. But make sure everything's being reviewed. You would have already had all these documents. They already would have been reviewed, likely by your team in advance. Hopefully, right? There's a good chance that that's the case. If not, then you want to spend a lot of intentional time making sure that everything's be reviewed before you sign, right? Once everything's been reviewed and you're good to go, you sign the agreements. Both parties need to sign it in order for the deal to be executed, right? At the moment in time in which both parties sign the agreements, you'll make copies of those signed agreements and the deal is executed. Both parties have it. Now you're at the stage of transfer. Transferring ownership is, realistically the execution of anything that needs to be signed in order to assume or transfer the ownership, whether it's equitable or asset based, from the sell side party to the buy side party, right? All of this stuff is going to be itemized again. All of this was part of your pre-closing process. So again, organization, and then inclusive in this transfer process, anything that needs to be filed with the Secretary of State or any other entity, right? Insurance companies, et cetera, policyholders, right? Anything that needs to be formally passed forward, landlords, all of this stuff is going to be executed, right? And you want to try to execute all of it all at the same time. Transfer of license, transfer of permits, transfer of certificates of authority, anything necessary that goes into operating the business, right? Domains, right? Email accounts, Stripe accounts, whatever the case, Google Analytics, all of the things that are ultimately a part of this sale, this transfer, you want it to be organized and then executed. Right. And that's really important. And I'm emphasizing it because a lot of times people, for whatever reason, they get to the point where they sign these documents and they think that that's when the deal's closed. And it's not. And then what ends up happening is like people drag feet, especially on the sell side, right? Especially if there's certain types of contingencies or whatever the case may be inside the agreement that wasn't outlined or whatever it is. There's no real, accountabilities and things of that nature. And there's a good chance that if there's, a slip up here, things could drag. So I just want to emphasize the fact that you want to keep it tight, right? You really want to keep the closing process tight. That's probably the thing that I should emphasize in this video. That's probably the moral of the story here, is you want to keep your closing process tight, right? Inclusive in the transfer, right? Post-sign, post-transfer, you got to pay. So there's got to be consideration for what's being transferred. You got to give to get, right? So whatever you landed on in terms of your financing structure, that's the moment in time in which all this stuff gets executed. So it may be as simple as like the agreements in which you've already signed. It may be as simple as like $1 for consideration to be able to execute into the agreement. Or it could be as complicated as the fact that like you have you're syndicating the deal from many different capital sources, and all of that capital needs to land, right? So it could be coming in from multiple different sources. The point that matters is you've already agreed to how the deal is getting financed. There's already a financial structure in place. You now need to execute on it in an accountable manner, right? Post-closing, this is where the rubber meets the road. You now need to step up to the plate, right? That this asset is now yours. You have this intentional, purposeful focus in terms of trying to do this as tight as possible, to keep as little create as little gaps as possible, to reduce the friction as possible in the transition, so that you can make sure that everything gets to the point of stability and stabilization as fast as possible. Say that 8 times fast, right? So you're doing things like notifying the customers, vendors, partners, employees, right? Like anybody who's a critical stakeholder inside of this organization that needs to know, or it would be strategic for them to need to know. Now, if it's not strategic and if it's not a part of your 100-day plan, you don't do it, right? So you do what you need to do at this point, but you're beginning to execute now your 100-day plan. This is your goal. This is your thing. This is your baby now. You got to drive it. It's your vehicle. You got to drive it forward, right? So you got to file any sort of necessary documents with the government. You got to cancel any accounts that are no longer relevant, right? A lot of folks, forget to do these types of things, and it's silly things that, leave a gap and leave a bleed, right? Any sort of things that you need that weren't able to be transferred, where if you need new liability insurance or insurance policies or bonds or whatever the case may be, you get those in place to be able to be in a position of good standing to do business, right? You want to take over the books, do all the formal things, update the cap tables, update all the filings, right? Make sure that everything is reflective of the fact that this is now changed possession, changed ownership. You are the new head honcho in charge. You are the captain of this ship, and it's all moving forward in the right direction, right? So you're really going to be diligent. And again, because you did a great job working through this deal through the entire process, You already have all this stuff mapped out. So I'm just reminding you that you did this already. You put it into your 100-day plan. You know what to do at this stage, right? You did it right. So make sure you feel confident. Make sure you execute with confidence and be extremely pragmatic in terms of your approach. Because again, everything we're doing is try to mitigate risk, right? Keep the close tight. Post close, right? So now you're at the point where you're really wrapping this up. This is it. You're just going to go back and confirm that everything that you said that you needed to do, you did do, right? Again, leave no stone unturned. It's really great if you're like an integrator. This is a great moment for you to shine. If you're not, if you're a visionary, make sure you get an integrator. Get accountabilities, right? Structure, strategies, and accountabilities get you to simple, profitable outcomes. And it is no difference post-close into an integration, right? The integration is an extremely important, critical, pivotal time in terms of an acquisition. It could be as important and critical as make or break. You could quite literally potentially tank the business. It is your asset now, right? It's like you went to the grocery store, you gave your $10, you got your dozen of eggs, you're walking to your car, you trip, right? You didn't make sure that your shoelaces were tied, right? You stepped on your shoelace, you tripped, you fell, you broke those eggs. Guess what? Those were your eggs, not the supermarket's fault. You broke those eggs and you had all your eggs in one basket, buddy. Like, bad decision. Make sure you're making good timely decisions and you're holding yourself accountable. Best way to do that is to be hyper diligent at this stage, this process. Integration is critically important. Things are very fragile, like those eggs, right? What you want to do is get to a point of stabilization in your business where you've been able to insulate your business with like some operational excellence, right? Where you know you're operating this business well and you know what's going on and it's working for you. That's like wrapping your eggs in some bubble wrap before you put it in the bag, before you leave the grocery store, right? If something happens, life happens, you fall, it can kind of weather it. It's a little bit more versatile, right? At this stage of the game, this is your deal, right? You're going to want to be able to take this, carry it forward. You have your 100-day plan. You're going to want to execute your 100-day plan. And we do have a way in which you'll do that. It's very intentional in terms of what we put together. We have our own process. We call it the Simple Process, Simple Profits Playbook, right? So it's all about getting the simple, profitable outcomes. We obviously have Simple Profits as an operating system, which helps you navigate through all of these processes, the buy, sell, getting to wedge equity. But like, once you take possession and you're in this position where you have an operating system and you have a business, and now you're going through the process of getting to stabilization and then eventually towards building the wedge, getting to stabilization and optimization, right? That's that critically important component. And it all is about the structure, strategies, and accountabilities. So if you need a little bit of help with that, definitely visit us at Simple Profits. Join the community at Bootstrapper Capital. Reach out to the brokerage, Simple Business Brokerage, right? That's what we do. That's what we help with. That's what we support. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. We appreciate it. This was all a part of our free buy-sell bootcamp. It was a big lift. It's about 20 hours or so worth of content to be able to put it all together. It's something that we just did because we feel like it's like the right thing to do. A lot of folks out there are selling you a course on how to buy or sell a business. Guess what? If somebody's selling you a course on how to buy or sell a business, their business is selling you that course. Their business is not buying businesses, right? And we at Bootstrapper Capital, we do build, buy, and sell simple profit businesses every single day. Hopefully you found a lot of value in this content. We're going to continue it. We're going to expand upon it. But this is the end of this section, right? This is the end of the chapter. You now own this business, right? So technically we got to the point of an acquisition. We are going to build upon, what you're going to do in the integration and the stabilization and the optimization for sure. But at this point, appreciate you for watching this and sticking with us to the end.